Before I get there, though, there are a couple of things that I wish they brought back for this generation that they could have included. In Heart Gold and Soul Silver, they allowed you to walk with your Pokemon at your side, and you could interact with them. I wish they did that. It made the game a lot more personable, and you could relate to the Pokemon as you were walking with them. That was nice. What I want to show off are these areas of high grass. Now, in addition to having higher-leveled Pokemon than the average grass, you can encounter 2 of them at once in a wild battle. The only game that incorporated double wild battles was, what were they, Diamond, Pearl, and Platinum, where you can only encounter 2 Pokemon at once when you were walking around with another person. Here we go. See, not 1, but 2 Blitzels in one fight. Now, I could obliterate them, but they're too cute, so I'm not going to. Another thing I wish they brought back were gym leader rematches. Really, the only thing that's lacking from the post-game in the 5th gen is that there aren't any additional gym leader battles or anything afterwards. I mean, there is quite a bit for you to do after you beat the Elite Four, don't get me wrong. I think the post-game is second only to the 2nd generation, which, I mean, getting to go through the entire Kanto region again, you can't compete with that. But I don't want to spoil what happens after you beat the Elite Four, but suffice it to say, there's quite a bit for you to do. There's a lot of plot development, and there's the whole eastern half of the region is up to explore. Getting out the map again. You wind up going around the west side here in the main game, and once you get through the Pokemon League, you can explore this entire half of the region. And there's a lot to do here, quite a bit to do here. So by no means is the game over once you've beaten the Elite Four. Now, a couple of version differences. One of the minor ones is here, where in the black you have greenhouses, whereas in white you have just plots of soil. That's not too much. Another difference, a major difference in aesthetics, you'll find in the city with the last gym, whose name I can't pronounce. But in Pokemon Black, this city is entirely technologically developed. It's all nice and dark, and you have these little blue lines all over the place, and in Pokemon White, it's a lot more rustic. It has that old city feel. Personally, I like that more than I like this, but it's up to you which one you like and which ones you don't. Anyway, another aspect of the 5th generation that is new is rotation battles or triple battles. In Black here you can encounter a couple of rotation battles. What's interesting about rotation battles is that you send out 3 Pokemon at once, but only one is doing the fighting at any time. It's easier to explain once you have the battle going here. Now you see I have 3 Pokemon on the field, she has 3 Pokemon on the field. What I can do, in addition to use one of Salsa's moves, is that I can also rotate into either Drago or Porky here and have them attack. And you can do a whole bunch of predictions. Like, say, I'll predict that she goes to the Fire Pokemon, so I'll use Rock Slide. Of course she doesn't, but I'm so high level that it shouldn't really make a difference. So let's have her switch into... I think she's going to switch into Simisear. I'll predict that she's going to stay in with Simisear, so I'll switch into Drago and use Earthquake. And that doesn't cost me a move either, I can use the move immediately. Of course, she has the opportunity to rotate as well. And it doesn't matter whether or not I hit the Water type or the Fire type, because I would have knocked it out anyway, but I'm just showing it off. So let's rotate into Porky for no reason, and use Rock Slide. Triple battles are the same as double battles in that you get to use all 3 of your Pokemon get to attack it in the same turn. The only difference is, at least for a large majority of attacks, if your Pokemon is on the far right, you can only attack your opponent's left and center Pokemon, or the two that are closest to you. Whereas your Pokemon in the middle can attack all three on the other side, but at the same time get attacked by all three on the opponent's side as well, so there's quite a bit of strategy involved there too. There are a couple of moves that can attack from any position, mostly flying type moves, but you really have to look them up to know which one is which. One last version difference that I want to show off, that I can't really show off because I don't have an internet connection on, well, there's no Wi-Fi connection on an emulator, but once you beat the Elite Four, you can head over to Black City in Black, or a White Forest in White. They both work similarly, and they involve using the Entralink to interact with other players from different games. What you can do once you interact with them is that you can bring about a couple of trainers here. And what version you're playing will change what happens when you bring those trainers here. In Pokemon Black, if you bring a specific trainer here, say it's for the Abra family, then that trainer, you can battle their the fully evolved version of the Pokemon family, which would be Alakazam. Whereas in White, that same trainer would allow you to capture a level 5 Abra here, which you wouldn't be able to do at any other point in the game. And at least for me, that's going to be the biggest deciding factor in terms of which game I get in the English version. Whereas in Pokemon White, you can catch a lot of Pokemon that would not be available to you in Pokemon Black, at least the retro ones. Whereas in Pokemon Black, all you get to do is fight them. In White, you'd actually be able to capture them and train them and evolve them, so you can get a lot more Pokemon in White than you can in Black, at least exclusively. Speaking of exclusives, I will get to the Pokédex and version-exclusive Pokemon once I get to the Pokédex, but I want to save that for last because I'll probably spend forever going through it if I don't. So let's get back to just randomly wandering around areas in the main game. You know what, I don't remember anything else there is for me to talk about, so I'll just head up to Route 10, which has one of my favorite route themes in the entire game, and then we'll just go through the Pokédex. This Route 10 being the route to the Victory Road. Anyway, time for the Pokédex, which I'm sure most of you have been waiting for. What starter Pokemon should you pick? Now, I say this for every Pokemon game. Whoever you want to pick is entirely up to you. You can start with Snivy, which is the grass snake. You could start with Tepig, which is the fire type. Or Oshawott, which is the water type. Snivy is interesting in that it's a fast grass type. I want to show the thing actually moving around, but I'm not sure how to go about doing that in the Pokédex here. Yeah, this is fine. Snivy is a fast grass type. Really, the only downsides to it are that, A, it's a grass type, and it has a lot of weaknesses. Not too many types are weak to grass. And it also has a pretty limited move pool where you can't cover too many of your weaknesses, but it is a pretty cool poke, and it's probably the fastest of the 3 starters. Tepig, fire type, probably very tempted to pick it. The only reason you'd go against picking this thing is that it's relatively slow compared to the others, and there are a lot of physical attackers in this generation. When I say a lot, a majority of Pokemon in this generation are physically oriented, either physical attackers or physical defenders. So you can find a good bit of fire types or fighting types. So it's probably the least useful of the fire type starters from the first 5 generations. But that's not to say it doesn't have its strengths. I'm quite fond of it as well. Oshawott, the water type, probably the best all around. And its second evolution is pretty cool. First evolution, second form, whatever. Although it looks nothing like its final evolution. It's well-rounded. It has a good move pool. Really, what you want to choose is up to you. First going through, you have your, classic starter type Pokemon. You have the dog, you have the cat. Before you go to the first gym, which will have a type advantage over you regardless of who you pick as your starter, you can head over to the Dream Lot and pick up one of these monkeys, either the grass monkey, the fire monkey, or the water monkey, depending on who you picked as your starter. I believe if you pick the fire starter, you'll get the grass monkey. If you pick the water starter, you'll get the fire monkey, and if you pick the other starter, you'll get the water monkey. Which is why I got Pansage. And that will help you, at least, if nothing else, they'll give you a type advantage over the first gym. You have the Psychic type Muna and Musharna. You have the obligatory bird type Pokemon. You have the electric Zebra that I used for most of mine. You have the rock type. The interesting thing about this game, I think they did a couple of throwbacks to the first generation in that you have a rock type trait evolution here. You also have a fighting type trading evolution, which is like Golem and Machamp in the first generation. You have Woobat and Swoobat, which are like your Zubat and I'm forgetting the first gen Pokemon. This is so embarrassing. You have your Mole-type Drillers. The rare Pokemon we ran into, which we'll run into quite a bit. This is the Machamp-esque family. Timber, Girder, and Conkeldurr. You have the water ground type frog dudes here. Throw and Sawk, which are they're close to being type version exclusives, even though Sawk you'll find more often in black, Throw you'll find more often in white, but you can find the opposites in Shaking Grass, and they're not the only kind of Pokemon that holds true for either. You have the grass bug type here, bug poison types here. This is an interesting Pokemon. I won't really get into why. You have more grass types. And this is another interesting one as well. Basculin, whatever it is, it has two forms. The red one you'll find more often in... I forget which is which, but one you'll find more often in black than in white, and vice versa. But if you encounter rare ones in the water, chances are you'll find the other one. They're pretty much the only ones you'll encounter in the water for a time. Ground dark types here, fire type. This is probably a favorite of most. Darmanitan. Very strong physical attacker. This one's pretty forgettable. I think these are bug ground types, bug rock types. Yeah, this hermit crabs. You have dark fighting types here. I'm pretty sure it's fighting type. Psychic flyer. You have a ghost type, which is pretty defensive. You have these two, which evolve from stones, fossils, Silverna Ammonite and Kabuto from the first generation. You have these two, which you can resurrect from fossils. Poison types, which are like garbage bags. I mean, a lot of the Pokemon from this generation, they seem kind of forced as to where they came from. But, you know, putting that aside, just the Pokemon themselves, these games really are fantastic. Zorua and Zoroark, event Pokemon that can shapeshift into another Pokemon. I don't quite know what the mechanic on that is, but it's interesting. These Chinchilla guys. Black exclusive Psychic types here, the Goth family, as opposed to the Blob family, which is exclusive to White. These Docks water flying type. The Ice Cream Pokemon! These two are interesting. The Deerling and Saucebuck. Their forms change depending on what season it is. I don't believe I have all 4 seasons in the Pokédex. But you have spring form, summer form, winter form, and a fall form. Both of them have that. Electric flying type here. This is quite an interesting family. This is one of 2 bug types that evolve via trade. Bug types are exceptionally strong in this generation, surprisingly so. It was one of the neglected typings in the previous gens, but in 5th gen they got quite a few really strong Pokemon, and you'll find that if you fight the champion, he specializes in quite a few strong bug types, like this one, which is pretty slow, but it's pretty darn powerful. Fungus Amoongus. Pun is obvious. Water, ghost types here, which is a pretty interesting typing. Water type, which has a lot of HP. It's like the Chansey of water types. Electric bug type here. Steel, grass type, which is fairly defensive, I don't think it's very powerful, but it's extremely slow. And it's one of the few evolved forms that I don't have in my Pokédex. Clink, Clang, and Clink, Clang, steel types. This is quite an interesting electric type here. It evolves fairly late, and it doesn't learn very many moves until it evolves. I don't think it learns anything until it evolves into this thing. But it has the ability Levitate, so it has no weaknesses. The only weakness for electric types is ground, and with Levitate, you can't hit it with any super effective moves unless you have something that can hit Pokemon by disabling their abilities. I think this is a Psychic type, correct me if I'm wrong. I didn't catch one, I don't recall. I'm pretty sure it's Psychic. The Candle family here, Ghost Fire type, very, very strong special attackers, which don't come across too often in this generation. You might want to pick one of these up. Ghost Fire, very interesting typing. You'll also find a couple of dragon types, the first being the Axew family. Of course, Drago here. Very, very strong physical attackers. Ice Bears. I don't know what the heck this thing is. It's like Glalie to me in that it's a random ice type that looks like a snowflake. Who knows? Another one of the strong bug types. I'm not even sure what the heck this thing is. It looks like a whoopee cushion. Ground Electric, that's an interesting typing as well. Mienfoo and Mienshao, very strong fighting types, which you don't really encounter until middle to late in the game. Dragon type again. Ghost Ground type, a lot of interesting typings in this generation. Dark Steel type, for instance. Buffalo. And a white exclusive is the bird family here, the Braviary. I don't have the unevolved form. I don't know if you can encounter it in the black, but in white. I don't think you find one of these until Victory Road or something. But it's a very powerful flying type. And this is the black exclusive, which is, I think is dark flying. Yes, it is. Fire Anteater dude. Literal steel ant bug type. Dark dragon type, which you don't encounter middle of the game, but it doesn't evolve until I think level 55 or something, so you don't get this thing, which is entirely badass. It has a very high special attack. Dark Dragon, I think? Yeah, I don't have the typing, so I think it's Dark Dragon. Very strong. These two, Bug Fire type. This one you encounter level 70, similarly to how you would encounter a legendary, although it is not a legendary in and of itself. And you get its baby form in the form of an egg, which I just hatched recently, and evolves into this thing. Then you have your legendaries, which I've heard are based on the Three Musketeers. Cobalion? I'm not even going to try to pronounce these names. Steel Fighting type, Rock Fighting type, and Grass Fighting type. You also have these Flying Genie types. The one in black is Tornadus, whatever. I think it's pure Flying type, whereas in white you would find the Electric Flying type. And if you have both of them, you can encounter this dude, which is... He might be pure flying, I don't remember. Actually, I think it's ground flying, I'm sorry. And then of course you have the poster boys of the generation, which are Reshiram and Zekrom. Zekrom you can get in white, Reshiram you catch in black. And one of the latest ones you can catch is this thing, which is really, really weird looking. I think it's an Ice Dragon type. Yes, it is.